Imagine this, a decision so deeply personal, so final, but wrapped in secrecy. A decision that leads a family not just grieving, but completely bewildered, grappling with hidden trauma, unseen scars. What are the real costs, beyond the money? When someone seeks solace at life's end, but maybe within a system not equipped for the full story. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the incredibly complex and, frankly, heartbreaking case of Maureen Slough. She was 58. Her assisted suicide in Switzerland has just ignited this firestorm of questions. Questions about personal autonomy, sure, but also about institutional responsibility and the devastating ripple effects on the people left behind.
Yes, and we've gathered quite a stack of sources for you on this. We've got news reports, fact checks, which are crucial here, and deeper analyses looking at Maureen's traumatic history and the big ethical qualms her death raises. Our mission today is really to pull out the most important insights from all this material, to help you understand the layers here, because there are many, and what this specific tragedy reveals about assisted dying practices, more broadly.
And it's quite a story. I mean, Maureen told her family she was off on holiday to Lithuania. But actually, she secretly flew to Switzerland for assisted suicide.
Right.
Her daughter, Megan, found out via WhatsApp just weeks after she given birth herself. And then her ashes arrived by mail in a parcel. This goes way beyond headlines, doesn't it? It's like a window into this intersection of personal suffering, family dynamics, and the ethical maze of what some people call euthanasia tourism. So with that stark picture, let's piece together the events. Maureen Slough from Bullock County Cavan in Ireland. She traveled secretly to the Pegasus Clinic, that's in Basel, Switzerland. This was July 8th, 2025, and she told her family Lithuania.
The Tover story.
Exactly. Then just 2 days later, July 10th, she underwent the assisted suicide procedure. Reports say she was listening to Elvis Presley gospel music in her final moments. That detail, it's kind of poignant, almost surreal, given everything.
Yeah.
And the cost was around 13,000 pounds. Which is, what, about NT 500 other $30,000? It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the music choice, it adds this layer of personal symbolism, doesn't it?
It really does. And that mix, the deeply personal, like the music, alongside this deliberate deception about the holiday, it immediately flags a critical tension. Why the secrecy? It's not just about privacy, perhaps. This avoidance of her core support system, her family. It might suggest deeper issues, maybe with her capacity to make this decision free from other factors.
Avoidance, yeah.
For any provider, that level of concealment, especially from close family, should be a major red flag. It really calls into question, whether she could genuinely explore all her options.
That isolation, even right at the end, making that irreversible choice, it's very telling. And the pain really escalates in the aftermath, especially for her daughter, Megan Royal. I mean, can you even imagine? Megan had just had her second child weeks before. Then she gets a WhatsApp message from the clinic telling her mother is dead.
Yeah.
She described it herself, saying she was sitting on the bed holding the baby, crying helplessly. It's an image. It just sticks with you. Such vulnerability met with such cold, impersonal news.
And that method of notification, sending a WhatsApp message at a time like that, it's a prime example of what psychologists call secondary trauma. It's not just the grief of the loss itself. It adds layers of shock, disbelief, anger, a feeling of being completely dehumanized by the process. It inflicts new wounds on the family.
It turns a personal tragedy into something cold, almost administrative.
Precisely. It removes the human element at a time when it's most needed.
And the indignity, it didn't stop there, unfortunately. Maureen's ashes were sent to the family in a plain brown parcel via Postal Express.
Unbelievable.
Megan's quote about this was widely reported, and it just captures it perfectly. She said she felt like her mom was in the back of a truck, and I could only track that number as if she were a package.
Oh, that's brutal.
Tracking her mother like a parcel. It's haunting. It strips away every bit of dignity, doesn't it, from what should be a respectful process.
Absolutely. It wasn't just impersonal. It felt like it actively stripped dignity from Maureen and from the family's right to receive their loved one back with some compassion. It really does feel less like a compassionate medical process and more like a cold commercial transaction just completing its delivery.
Which raises the big question. What brought Maureen to this point? Let's try to unpack her life story now. It's incredibly complex, often tragic, and it really impacts how we think about her mental state. The trauma started very early, a real foundational experience of loss and, deception. When she was just 3, her mother took her from the UK to Ireland. Her father didn't know,
Oh.
and she carried immense guilt about that her whole life. especially because it meant she couldn't be with her father when he died years later.
That's a heavy burden from such a young age.
Definitely. And then she also claimed, and this is important, is her claim that she was sexually abused by a friend of her mother's. After running away, she said she was placed in one of the notorious Magdalene laundries for 5 years. And during forced labor mistreatment, she recalled feeling like scum. Now, we need to be clear here. While these claims about abuse and the laundries are reported in some sources, other independent fact checks found them unverifiable from public records. But they are consistently cited as her claims about her past. And they clearly shaped how she saw herself and her life.
And from a psychological standpoint, these aren't just isolated bad events. If her claims are reflective of her experience, this is a cascade of traumas. It very likely points towards complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD.
Okay, CPTSD, how is that different?
Well, unlike PTSD from a single event, CPTSD stems from prolonged, repeated trauma, often starting in childhood. It fundamentally impacts personality development, emotional regulation, relationships, self-worth. Everything. So assessing mental soundness in someone with potential CPTSD is incredibly challenging. Their whole way of seeing the world, themselves, the future, it can be deeply shaped, even distorted by that trauma.
So it's not just about knowing what she was deciding, but the why, and whether that why was driven by the trauma itself. That makes the legal standard of mental soundness seem maybe insufficient.
That's exactly the issue. It moves beyond just cognitive function. Does she understand the facts right now? To the deeper psychological drivers. And her adult life continued this pattern of struggle. She lost at least 2 sisters, adding more grief. She battled chronic depression, anxiety, fibromyalgia.
A lot of chronic pain conditions often accompany trauma histories.
They do. And she also developed this strong belief she had sepsis, that doctors were missing it. She saw it as more negligence, more dismissal.
So the sepsis idea may be less about a specific medical diagnosis and more a reflection of how she felt internally.
Quite possibly. That conviction about sepsis, whether medically accurate or not, could be a powerful metaphor, like an internal rotting or poisoning from all the trauma. It's what we call somatization, psychological pain manifesting as physical belief. It reflects that deep sense of being broken, ignored, maybe beyond help, which reinforces the isolation.
And just hours before she died, she sent these heartbreaking messages to an online friend. She wrote, "I am no longer myself. Have been living in hell for the past year. Waking daily, crying, shaking. This is not the life I want."
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a calm, rational statement. It's a cry of sheer despair, fear, losing her sense of self. It highlights extreme isolation, even if she had family nearby.
It really screams distress, not considered choice.
Which brings us right to the Pegasus clinic itself, and this major point of contention. The clinic claimed they had a signed consent letter from Megan, Maureen's daughter, confirmed by email.
Right, and Megan absolutely denies this, vehemently. She denies signing anything confirming any email. She suspects her mother forged the documents.
If that's true.
If that's true, it's a catastrophic procedural failure, a massive breach of the clinic's duty of care. For something irreversible like assisted suicide, the consent process has to be watertight. Any doubt here just casts this huge shadow over everything. It's a fundamental breakdown.
And it leads straight into this mental capacity paradox. Swiss law allows assisted suicide if someone is mentally sound, but they don't need a terminal illness.
Correct.
So, given Maureen's incredibly documented history, the trauma, the mental illness, a prior suicide attempt, how did Pegasus conclude she was mentally sound? It seems like a huge contradiction.
It is. It's a profound paradox, and it highlights a potential flaw in how these laws can be applied. Swiss law often focuses heavily on a sort of narrow moment-in-time definition of soundness. It looks at immediate cognitive capacity. Can you understand this information right now?
Yeah.
But might miss the deeper impact of chronic trauma on someone's whole worldview, their sense of hope, their ability to see alternatives.
So CPTSD could distort her view of the future, her self-worth, making her feel trapped, even if objectively there are other paths.
Precisely. It can fundamentally alter the lens through which someone sees their options. The clinic's assessment might have focused on the snapshot, the right now, without fully grasping the decades-long narrative of mental health struggles underpinning her despair.
That distinction is crucial. And the clinic's actions afterwards, the WhatsApp message, the ashes by post, they suggest a certain approach, don't they?
They absolutely do. They point strongly towards a service delivery or a transactional model. The clinic's job is done once the client, and I use that term deliberately, is deceased.
Right.
which is completely different from a continuum of care model. That model recognizes ethical duties extend beyond the patient to the family. It involves compassionate aftercare, grief support. The absence of that here feels like a systemic failure to grasp the human impact of what they do.
And Maureen choosing to go to Switzerland, bypassing her local support system, that highlights the whole issue of euthanasia tourism, doesn't it?
It really does. That cross-border element creates a kind of closed loop. It isolates the person from their family, community, regular doctors. It allowed Maureen potentially to present a story to the clinic that wasn't fully contextualized, made it harder for Pegasus to verify things, to get the full picture from back home.
So the isolation itself becomes part of the problem.
It can be. It might even inadvertently reinforce that sense of being trapped by removing those local checks and balances, those potential interventions or supports.
And what's really telling is that after all the controversy, Pegasus changed its protocols.
Yes, they reportedly now require lone applicants who do have family to provide ID for those relatives, and they do video calls to confirm consent.
So measures that might have flagged the issues in Maureen's case.
Exactly. And that policy change, well, it acts as a kind of indirect admission, doesn't it? It implicitly acknowledges their old procedures weren't enough to ensure safety and ethics, especially with family involved. It shifts the story from maybe an unforeseeable tragedy towards something potentially preventable. It suggests they recognize a systemic weakness.
This whole story, from start to finish, it really forces us to pause and look hard at the ethical framework around assisted dying. What does it all mean for how we approach these incredibly sensitive choices?
Well, it forces a crucial rebalancing act, ethically. There's a strong case to be made that sometimes the intense focus on individual autonomy, which is important, of course can overshadow other core principles, like beneficence acting in the person's best interest, and non-maleficence avoiding harm.
Okay.
If Maureen's decision truly was significantly influenced by her deep trauma, her psychopathology, then you could argue harm was done, not just to her, perhaps, but undeniably to her family. So a truly ethical framework has to carefully balance all three: autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence. It needs to ensure autonomy is exercised within a context of genuine well-being and minimal harm, considering everyone affected.
That balance seems incredibly tricky, especially when the person making the decision might be suffering in a way that clouds their judgment. It leads to that really tough question. How do we as a society, in our laws, in medicine, tell the difference between a rational desire to end suffering and a desire that is itself a symptom of a treatable mental illness, especially one rooted in such deep trauma?
That is the absolute core challenge. And Maureen's case, as tragic as it is, serves as a critical, urgent lesson. It offers painful but vital insights for improving assisted dying practices. We need to seriously consider reforms. First, we need much better assessment standards, specifically trauma-informed decision-making capacity assessments. These have to go deeper than just surface cognition, especially for people with complex trauma histories.
Looking at the whole psychological picture.
Exactly. Second, maybe mandatory multi-party consultation, requiring applicants, where feasible and safe, to talk with family involve their regular doctors. Now, obviously, if there are verified concerns about family abuse, you need safe, independent review protocols instead. Safety first.
Right, that's crucial.
And third, we really need international regulatory standards for clinics serving foreign nationals. Clear rules on aftercare, respectful family notification, grief support, basic human dignity for the deceased and the living.
This isn't about taking away choice, is it? It's about building safeguards, creating compassionate frameworks that respect the immense impact these decisions have on everyone involved.
It's about a more holistic, responsible approach.
Maureen Slew's story. It's just such a stark reminder, isn't it, of
Yeah.
the ethical tightropes involved when death becomes part of a commercial or transactional setup. It really challenges us to look beyond just individual choice and see the whole ecosystem. Care, compassion, accountability.
Yeah, the goal of these laws is usually dignity, control, peace. But this case forces us to ask, are we truly serving people's best interests, especially vulnerable people and their families, if the process itself can deepen isolation, if it can inflict new trauma?
We've covered some really tough, sensitive ground today. Lifelong trauma, huge ethical questions about end-of-life care, institutional responsibility. So as you reflect on Maureen's story, here's something to really think about. In our effort to honor individual autonomy at the end of life, are we, maybe, inadvertently, creating systems where the most isolated, the most wounded, the ones who need the most support, can slip through, leaving behind just unanswered questions and terrible family pain? What would a truly compassionate, trauma-informed, ethically sound system for assisted dying actually look like? one that genuinely upholds dignity for everyone involved.